Close brace. For JavaScript developers, by JavaScript developers. Right, back at it then. Sorry, for a minute I forgot I wasn't British. Anyway, in our last tutorial we created a very basic Webpack config file but had to leave off before we could actually use it. Today we're going to change that. First we need to make a few additions and changes to our app. We're going to jump right in by switching to or staying in Sublime Text, opening app.js, and commenting out line 31, our favicon line. Yes, we just uncommented this a couple of episodes ago. I'd forgotten that if you don't actually have a favicon, this will literally crash your entire app when you try to run it. You could alternately create a favicon.ico file and put it in /public. It's up to you. Save that file, and then create a new file in your top-level music list folder called .babelrc. Once again, yes, use the dot. These are the rules which Babel will use when Webpack calls upon it to transpile your ES7 and JSX down to regular old JavaScript. Fortunately, it's a super simple file. Here is everything it needs to contain. Presets, open array, ES2017, React, close array, trailing comma. That's it. We have ES2017, which is ES7 with a different name, for all the latest JavaScript goodness, and React for React. That's it, we're done here. Save the file and open package.json. We need to create a script to run Webpack, so add a comma to line 8, and then underneath it add the following. Build-dev, webpack-config, webpack.config.js-progress-profile-colors. This means when we type yarn run build-dev in our command line, it'll run Webpack using the config file we wrote in the last tutorial, with a couple of options set to make its output look a little nicer. Alright, save this file, and it's time to write some JSX, which will give us something to compile so that we can finally see whether or not our Webpack config even works. Create a top-level directory in your music list folder called src, or source, which will contain all of our React source files, including JSX components, JavaScript actions and stores, we'll get to those, and more. In that new folder, create a file called index.jsx. This is the top-level component of our app from which all other components will be initialized, albeit not in this file, it'll branch outwards like an upside-down tree. In the future, this file is going to get fairly complex, but for now it's quite simple. Here's what we need. Alright, let's go through this line by line. Line 1 imports our React module, which seems valuable if we're going to be writing a React app. Line 2 does something interesting, which we haven't covered before in this series. It's importing something from our react-dom module, but instead of pulling a master object that contains all of that module's methods and other properties, we're pulling a single method, render. We're doing this using an awesome ES6 feature called destructuring, which works with objects, arrays, and more. In this instance, destructuring in combination with import allows us to pull just the method we want from a whole big object of stuff, which saves on bundle size, among other things. Variable destructuring will come into play a lot as we work with React, and we'll cover it more as we move along. If you want to learn more about destructuring and a whole lot of other ES6 goodness, I cannot recommend Wesboss's ES6 for Everyone enough. It's a great series of video tutorials that covers everything new in ES6. I'll add a link to the YouTube description. Line 3 is importing a test React component from test-component.jsx. We don't have to add the file extension, Webpack is smart enough to figure it out. Eagle-eyed observers and ESLint may note that test-component.jsx does not in fact exist. We'll be fixing that in a second. Lines 5 through 8 use the render function we imported from react-dom to render our React component into our page, inserting it into a div named react-app. Annoyed by ESLint flagging document as undefined? Pop over real quick to .eslint.rc, and in the env block, add a comma to line 5, and then add the following. Browser true, node true. This will tell ESLint not to complain about assumed globals like window, document, and a few others. Save the file, go back to index.js, and then do the old space, delete, save to refresh. There we go. Okay, so now we need two things, a test component and a div with an ID of react-app. Let's do the test component first. Create a new file in /source called testcomponent.jsx. Now add the following. Okay, some of you who've seen React before might be thinking, wait, doesn't React use like classes and stuff? The answer is yes, it does when they're required, but they aren't required here, so we're using a pure function to generate our output. We'll get to classes later. Let's talk about what's going on here. We're importing React again, which we will do a lot. Then we're defining a new function, which we're exporting so that it can be imported by index.jsx, named test component. The default means that we can just do this, import test component from /test component, instead of import open brace test component close brace from /test component. That second one is how we import non-default variables, objects, functions, and so forth. This will inevitably cost you some time here and there when your code's not working and you hunt around for 15 minutes before realizing you forgot a default or forgot some braces for a non-default import and feel like an idiot. Sorry in advance. Once we define our function, we give it a return block, which, as you can see, returns a bunch of HTML. This is JSX, the bizarre JS/HTML hybrid of which I've spoken in the past. Look ye upon it in despair! Or don't. It's pretty straightforward. Mostly it's JavaScript except when you're in a return block, in which case you can return HTML, which you can mix with JavaScript, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. It's almost time to see that beautiful heading 1 text showing up in our browser. All that's left to do is edit our top level view and then run our Webpack build. So save this file, open up /views/index.ejs, and nuke all this crap in between the body tags. Then add this instead. Div ID equals react-app, loading with an ellipsis, and then a close div. Then, just below the closing body tag, add this line. Script source equals /javascript/build.js, close script. It's important to load our build.js after the div that contains our React app because otherwise it'll load the JavaScript and try to initialize React before the div exists, creating an error in our browser console and causing the app load to fail. Save this file. We're done writing code. Now we switch to a terminal window. Make sure we're in our music list directory and type yarn run build-dev. Behold! We have built a React app. Not one that does much, but a React app nonetheless. Make sure our node server is running. I'm going to restart mine just to be safe. Now open up a browser. Navigate to localhost port 3000. If everything went according to plan, you'll see a big header that says React test component. Congrats, this is a big step. We'll follow it up next time with some more info on how React components work together to create an app. Thanks for watching.